Pumpkin King's Lament. Every Halloween, the village of Willow Grove came alive with festivities. Lanterns lined the streets. Children dressed as ghouls and witches roamed in search of sweets, and the town square filled with laughter and music. But the most anticipated event of the night was the arrival of the giant pumpkin. No one knew exactly when it would appear. Some said it rose from the earth itself, summoned by ancient magic. Others whispered that it was carried in by the spirits of the forest. All that was certain was that at the stroke of midnight, there it would be. A massive pumpkin, glowing with a faint, eerie light, its face carved in ever-changing expressions. Villagers would gather around, marveling at the spectacle and daring one another to carve their initials into its surface. But even the bravest hesitated, for everyone knew the legend of the Pumpkin King. Long ago, it was said, there had been a powerful spirit who roamed the forests and fields, protecting the harvest and guiding the seasons. But as the villagers grew greedy, taking more than they needed and desecrating the land, the spirit's wrath grew. Betrayed by those he once protected, he retreated into the heart of the largest pumpkin, his magic turning it into his realm. Now, every Halloween, he emerged to judge those who dared challenge his power, trapping their souls if they could not face their fears. Lydia had grown up hearing the stories. As a child, she had been enchanted by them, imagining the Pumpkin King as a tragic figure, misunderstood and alone. But as she grew older, the stories faded into the background, replaced by the challenges of daily life. This Halloween, however, she found herself drawn to the town square, her heart heavy with a sense of longing and regret. She stood on the edge of the crowd, watching as the pumpkin's face morphed from a mischievous grin to a grimace of fury. People whispered and laughed, daring one another to carve their initials into its skin. Lydia's eyes traced the glowing lines of the pumpkin's face, and without thinking, she stepped forward, a knife in hand. "Are you sure about this, Lydia?" a voice called from the crowd. It was her friend Eliza, her eyes wide with concern. Lydia hesitated for a moment. She had her reasons for wanting to face the legend. Her life felt like a tangled web of mistakes, a recent argument with her sister that ended their relationship, a career decision she regretted, and the guilt that gnawed at her every night, whispering of missed opportunities and broken promises. She looked back at Eliza, giving a small, determined nod. "I have to." With a steady hand, she pressed the knife into the pumpkin's flesh, carving her name. The moment she finished, the ground trembled, and the pumpkin's glow intensified, enveloping her in a blinding light. The crowd's shouts faded into silence, and when she opened her eyes, she was no longer in the town square. She stood in a misty field, the air heavy with the scent of earth and decay. The sky above was a deep, unnatural shade of purple, and twisted vines sprawled across the ground, writhing like snakes. Ahead of her, a path wound through the dense mist, leading toward a shadowy forest. A voice, deep and echoing, filled the air. "Lydia, you have entered the realm of the Pumpkin King. Face your fears, or become one of the lost." Her heart pounded. The stories were true. She took a hesitant step forward, feeling the cold mist curl around her ankles. The path led her deeper into the forest, where the trees stood tall and gnarled, their branches like skeletal arms reaching for the sky. Faces carved into their trunks watched her, their expressions twisted in silent agony. As she moved, the mist began to part, revealing scenes from her past. She saw herself as a child, crying as her parents argued in the kitchen. She saw the moment she pushed her sister away, their argument echoing in the night. The images shifted, showing her sitting alone in her apartment, staring at her phone, wishing she could find the courage to reach out and mend what was broken. Lydia's steps faltered, the weight of her regrets pulling her down. The path before her split into two. One led to a bridge that stretched over a dark, churning river, and the other wound deeper into the forest, its end hidden by shadows. The voice of the Pumpkin King whispered in her ear, "Choose your path, Lydia. Face your mistakes or let them consume you." She felt the chill of his words, and a wave of fear washed over her. She could feel the pull of the forest, urging her to retreat, to bury her regrets and hide from the truth. But she knew if she did, she would be trapped in this realm forever, just like the others who had come before her. With a deep breath, she chose the bridge. As she crossed, the river's waters rose, swirling with the faces of those she had hurt, their voices calling out to her. "You pushed me away," her sister's voice echoed. "Why couldn't you just say you were sorry?" The current surged, threatening to drag her under, but Lydia gripped the railings, holding on. "I'm sorry," she shouted into the storm. "I was afraid of losing you, afraid of being wrong." The waters began to calm, and the bridge steadied beneath her feet. The path beyond glowed with a soft, inviting light, and as she stepped forward, the forest transformed. The trees' faces softened, their twisted branches becoming gentle arches, and the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers. At the end of the path stood the Pumpkin King himself, a towering figure made of vines and earth, his face carved into a solemn expression. His eyes glowed with the same eerie light as the pumpkin, and his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You have faced your fears, Lydia," he said, "but the dawn approaches. Do you wish to remain, or will you return?" Lydia felt the weight lift from her chest. She had confronted her regrets, spoken her truth. It was time to return and make things right. "I want to go back." The Pumpkin King nodded, his expression softening. "Then take this with you, a second chance. Use it wisely." The light surrounding him grew brighter, and the world around her faded once more. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the town square, the pumpkin glowing faintly in the night. The crowd had dispersed, and the air was still. Eliza ran to her side, relief in her eyes. "Lydia, you disappeared. I was so worried." Lydia looked at the pumpkin, its face now serene, and smiled. "I'm okay," she said, feeling a new sense of clarity. "I think I know what I need to do." With the dawn breaking over the village, Lydia walked away from the square, her heart lighter and her steps sure. She had faced the Pumpkin King's challenge, and in doing so, she had found the courage to change her story before the new day began.